Welcome back to the Dragon's Den. I'm your host, SinDragonLord, and this is week number 4 of the Global Pokemon Society Draft League. This week, we're going against the Memphis Mews. They got a really, solid team. It took me a hot minute to figure out this team's kind of weakness and how to exploit the cracks in the armor. They're also, if you guys watched the Global Pokemon Society tier list, we ranked Memphis as an S tier team. I think it was the top S tier team, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong. It might have gone to Pittsburgh, but regardless, Memphis was an S rated team or an S tier team. So naturally, I had to put more work into figuring out a strategy easily, or I shouldn't say easily, but to have as little complications in employing my strategy as possible. So as you can see on the screen, I kind of have my predictions of what they're going to bring. I'm 100% certain about 5 of them, just because they seem to be a creature of habit, and that entire left side is solid. The only debatable one is which C tier. Honestly, I feel like against me, bringing the Colossal would probably be the best option, because you could potentially Terra Water, get a boost off of getting hit by my Aqua Jet or a fire move off Arcanine. Not that I would willingly shoot a fire move into it, but if it's into one, for instance. The Steam Engine could be a very cheeky way to try to pick up a sweep if he wants to go that route with investment. But if nothing else, it could just be a decent way to set up rocks. So I do have to be wary about that. So that's why I feel like the Colossal is probably the most likely thing for him to bring out of his C tier. So the next question then becomes, what am I bringing? Well, let's get right into that. All right, so starting off, Cyclizar. With Cyclizar, I mean, it's pretty fairly standard at this point. I mean, it's the standard Shed Tail set. There probably will be other times in other weeks that I deem it necessary that I won't use a Shed Tail set, that I'll actually go with something kind of spicy. Because the issue with using Cyclizar is it's a little predictable and it's a little linear. They kind of know what to expect. It's whether or not they have a solid answer to that lead or not. And honestly, if you guys have been catching my videos, I very rarely have used Cyclizar to Shed Tail into a setup sweeper to set up a sweep. Week 1, I did have the opportunity, but he Terra'd into a grass type and completely walled me in the sun, so that kind of failed. Week 2, he had 2 unaware Pokemon on his team, so setting up wasn't really going to be in the cards for me. It was going to do absolutely nothing. And then the third week, I didn't really need to. The calculations that I had didn't really require that much setup. And so I haven't really used Shed Tail in the way of, I'm going to Shed Tail into a Zoomeril. I'm going to, belly drum for free and then start firing off Aqua Jets and put massive pressure and punch massive hole in the squad. The most effective Shed Tail I actually used was Shed Tailing into Terra Grass Arcanine in week number 2 and completely demolishing his team with that. So I haven't really been using Shed Tail in the way that it's kind of intended to be used. I've more been using it to get free switches, which is just as relevant. That way I don't have to take damage on a switch, and it's fast enough to outspeed most things that I don't need to hard switch into an attack. And then just Rapid Spin to deal with hazards in case that's what the Colossal wants to do. Knock off any problematic items like the heavy duty boots on the Volcarona, but that's only relevant if I bring rocks, which I am not. And then Taunt, I mean, if I find a better move than Taunt, I'll probably swap it. But for now, this is just a standard set. If I come up with something spicy, you'll see in the video. But moving on. We're bringing back the Squawkabilly, boys. We're bringing back the Squawkabilly. So here's the interesting part, right? You might notice that I am bringing 2 C tier Pokemon instead of Medicham, which has been I actually haven't brought Medicham the last few matches at all. And that's been mainly because Medicham is a good Pokemon. I love Medicham. It's put on a lot of good work for me. But I'm also not stupid. I'm not going to bring it to matchups where it's not going to thrive. This is one of those matchups where it's not going to thrive. I mean, we got Goldango, we got Volcarona, we got Gyarados, we got Heracross. I mean, Heracross does kind of get dealt with Zen Headbutt, but, there's just a lot of things that answer Medicham, and I don't want to bring a Pokemon that has to Terrastallize in order for it to put in work. And I feel like in this matchup, I would have to Terra with Medicham in order for it to do work. That's why I'm not bringing it. In the case of Squawkabilly, last week against Tokyo, I had Parting Shot, Brave Bird, Double Edge, and Final Gambit. This week I don't have Final Gambit. The reason for that is simple, and that's just because in last week's match, her average HP stat was typically lower than Squawkabilly. So Final Gambit was just a nice little free 1-for-1 if I needed it. But this week, the HP stat is massively different. I think it only one-shots like a couple of Pokemon maybe, and the rest it deals like 90% to, which is fine, but I would rather, if I'm going to use Final Gambit, I would rather just guarantee the 1-for-1, Parting Shot, is super, super good. I mean, Intimidate into Parting Shot into Intimidate Arcanine, that just puts a Pokemon at -3 on the first turn in attack, which really keeps the Heracross and the Gyarados in check, which, to be quite frank, are kind of the ones I'm worried about the most, because if you let those get out of control, they get out of control, and they get out of control fast. But I mean, offensively, Squawkabilly is no pushover either. I mean, Brave Bird one-shots Heracross, Brave Bird one-shots Volcarona, and outspeeds them both. I mean, the only thing I have to worry about is a potential Flame Body Bird, but even if it does happen, I still have the ability to Parting Shot, and it also gives me a free switch in to absorb other statuses. So it's not the worst thing if it happens. I'm mostly using it as a pivot more than an offensive threat, but it can be an offensive threat if I need it to be, so utility. Toadscroll. I have it Terra Water. I should probably explain the other Terra types too, because I don't know if I've actually explained. The reason I have Terra Dark on Cyclizar is because I want to have a way to answer any potential prankster taunts. Being able to just shut down my Shed Tail ability. And I can't just taunt them in return because their taunt will be faster than mine. So having the ability to Terra Dark, be immune to prankster, and then get a free Shed Tail off, chef's kiss. And it's not like I'm going to be using Cyclizar to Terra and anything else, at least not with this particular set, because it's more of a support. So that's why I have it as Terra Dark. Squawkabilly, I have Terra Flying. It's just a really good defensive type, and I get extra stab on Brave Bird, which is nice. This week, we're going with Terra Water on Toadscroll. This is a really good defensive typing. And it allows me to kind of protect myself against the Volcarona and the Gyarados a little bit better. Obviously, it doesn't do me any favors against Sandy Shocks, but Sandy Shocks is still in the picture. I probably won't be Terra Watering, in all fairness, because without Terra, I actually wall Sandy Shocks pretty easily, unless he decides to go Terra Ice, but, variables. There's always going to be a situation where, well, what if this happens? Well, I guess I'll just have to, you know, play by the seat of my pants in game 1 and just have that knowledge into game 2. Arcanine. So I have a really weird specific EV spread for this particular Arcanine set. So I put just enough of speed investment into it to outspeed max Jolly Gyarados, max attack, and then the rest of it in HP. The reason for this is because I didn't feel like I really needed to max out my speed all too much, just because his speed tiers are mediocre at best. The only 2 things on his squad that actually outspeed is like Lilligant and like Sandy Shocks and Volcarona. But Volcarona can't really touch me anyway. I mean, its moveset it's like Fiery Dance, Bug Buzz, and it's like Giga Drain, typically. And none of those moves actually touch Arcanine, so I don't need to really stress about needing to outspeed it necessarily. Even so, extreme speed, even if I do need to, extreme speed kind of does a good chunk of damage anyway. I've been sticking with the Terra Grass, even though I'm not Flash Fire. I just feel like that Terra Grass is one of the best Terra types defensively for Arcanine. Water is an arguable one. Steel could be in a very specific matchup. But I just think that Grass is just overall a good defensive typing. The only thing that you could argue against is it being weak to Bug. But I mean, who really is switching in a Bug type on Arcanine that hasn't already Terra'd? Point made. And then also, even though it's adamant, or even though it's Jolly and not adamant, it will still one-shot Gyarados with Wild Charge after an Intimidate. That's assuming, of course, that it is not like physically defensive, max defense, max HP, which normally they're not. Normally they're just Intimidate with, attacking stats, attack and speed. There might be a slight bit of bulk, but he would have to put a lot of bulk in to survive a Wild Charge. And even then, like, you can't switch into it because I'll just KO you with the next Wild Charge or Extreme Speed. So, and then Flare Blitz one-shots Goldango, it one-shots Heracross, it one-shots Sandy Shocks just because the defensive stat is not great. And then if I do decide to Terra Grass once all the bug types are dealt with, I kind of wall Sandy Shocks with Arcanine as well. So, there's that. And then I have Morning Sun on there as well, just to have the ability to recover the HP that I lose off of Life Orb Recoil and the recoil from the Flare Blitz and the Wild Charge. And I'm faster than most of his Pokemon, so being able to safely recover shouldn't be that big of an issue at all. And again, I went Intimidate over Flash Fire just because the Volcarona I'm not that terrified of, because it walls it just perfectly fine without needing to be immune to fire. And I feel like the whole Parting Shot, double Intimidate into Heracross or Gyarados is just more valuable. Azumarill. Azumarill is pretty much going to be the same in most matchups, just because it does a couple of things, but it does one thing exceptionally well, and that's this. If I change up sets, it's going to be because, it'll be probably either Choice Band or Assault Vest. I might come up with something spicy in a different matchup, but typically Citrus Berry with Belly Drum is typically the way I'm going to want to go in most situations. The only variance might be what I put the last 12 E. Will it be defense? Will it be special defense? Will it be speed to be able to outspeed a specific threat? That way I don't have to use Aqua Jet. It just depends on the matchup. So that part will be left to the imagination. But Azumarill does Azumarill things. I'm not going to waste too much time explaining. However, this I am going to explain quite a bit. Expert Belt Oricorio Powwow. Oricorio is heavily slept on. It got a new tool. It got Quiver Dance this generation, which is bonkers insane, absolutely insane. I've already come up with a couple of different sets for Oricorio that are both offensive and defensive, so there's a lot of versatility behind this little, you know, luau partying looking mofo. So just to briefly go over some calcs here. And I can also pull up the damage calculator to that up as well, but I can, if it comes to that, I will. But I went with Terra Ground on this, just because Terra Ground kind of deals with a lot, and what Terra Ground doesn't deal with, Air Slash does. So just to run a couple of calcs that I know off the top of my head, Revelation Dance, Terra Ground, which that's another thing to talk about, by the way. Revelation Dance is a move that its type is dependent on the user's primary type. Usually it's Psychic, but with Terastallization, its primary type changes. So basically, it becomes a base 90 Terra Blast. That's pretty insane when you think about it. So just to go over some calcs, Revelation Dance before or after Terastallization and before a Quiver Dance, one-shots Goldango 100% of the time. Air Slash KOs Volcarona after a boost. It does like 70% minimum before a boost. It one-shots Heracross with either Revelation Dance before Terastallization or Air Slash. Revelation Dance one-shots Colossal. I think Air Slash is a 2-hit KO on Gyarados after a boost. I'll have to calc that to make sure. And I think Revelation Dance after a boost also, maybe even before a boost, one-shots the anti-shocks as well. Now you might be thinking, well, Kevin, it's so bulky. I mean, it's not the fastest. I mean, it's base 93 speed. Can't a setup mon just set up and outspeed you and then KO you? It could, except its ability Dancer kind of prevents that. Because if Volcarona wants to set up a Quiver Dance in the face of Oricorio, it's also giving me a boost. So if I have a Quiver Dance already set up, Volcarona can literally never outspeed me. Never. Not in a million years, because every time it gets a speed boost, I'll get a speed. Same with Gyarados. It can Dragon Dance, but if I'm already... And Oricorio is already faster than Gyarados anyway. So if every time it boosts, I'm always going to be faster. Now, obviously, it'll get to a point to where Gyarados could potentially hit me on the physical side and do a lot of damage, sure. And if I really wanted to be cheeky, I could run Feather Dance as well. That way I could also neuter any like Dragon Dance users. But I really need the Air Slash, because if I go Revelation Dance, I have no way to hit the Volcarona or the Heracross for a guaranteed one-shot. There might be some matchups where I use Feather Dance just to neuter some physical attackers, but we'll come that bridge. We'll come to that bridge when we get to it. So yeah, I've talked about some of the damage calculations, and actually I do want to verify one thing. Here we go. So Air Slash does 31 to 37% to Gyarados. With the I think it needs 2 dances to at least that's what I have written here, is I need 2 Dragon Dance to one-shot with Air Slash. And if I'm Terra Ground, I do absolutely no damage. So, and that's another thing too, is if I Terra if I am Terra and I go against Gyarados, Waterfall's gonna be doing a lot of damage. I have to be kind of careful about that. But let's just go ahead and pull up damage calculator. Oricorio. How? 252. 2. I have 4 in SpF. Make it level 50. Mid. Ability is Dancer. And then we have not like expert. There we go. Revelation, Dance, and Airs. So yeah. And when I do damage calculations, I round up. So this says 30.5, but I round up to 31. I also do that on defensive calcs too, just to be on the safe side. So after one quiver dance, we're doing 62 to 73% with air slash. Well, wait, that's a +1. So actually, I think I would need 4. Yeah, even with 4 quiver dances, I don't guarantee an OCO on game. So, thankfully, I have other answers to Gyarados, but yeah, Oricorio will probably be used most efficiently when Gyarados is out of the picture, or if it's chipped enough to where Air Slash can knock it out. But with that being said, oh, also fun fact, I forgot this was up. Arcanine, our Arcanine is number 2, only trailing by 1 KO as far as the top 10 best performing Pokemon. So shoutouts to Riley for putting in that good work over the last few weeks and getting in the top 10. Good job, buddy. So anyway, that's all I really got to say about that. I mean, I think I have a pretty good game plan going into this matchup. Obviously, the only real variance would be like if he changes Terra types based on if he changes Terra types that are different than what I've seen him do in previous weeks on the YouTube videos. Because that's something I will always do. Is I will always do my homework. So any person in the GPS that's watching this video right now, just know if I face you, I've done my homework. I do it every week. So I think I come up with a pretty good game plan. So without any further ado, we're already 23 minutes in almost in this pre-game analysis. So let's just go ahead and get right into the match. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Peace out, you guys. So that pretty much went perfectly according to plan. So game 1, I was a little caught off guard by the scarf on the Sandy Shocks, but we were obviously able to kind of play around that. Arcanine did a little bit of cleanup, and then Azumarill picked up the rest of the KOs in game 1. And in game 2, holy crap. So I wasn't planning on shed tailing into Oricorio at first, but then he brought in Volcarona on the knockoff, and I was just like, you know, he's probably going to go for Fiery Dance or Quiver Dance, and either way, I'm copying that damn. If he goes for Quiver Dance, we're off to the races. What does he do? He Quiver Dances. So, Oricorio, you did exactly what I needed you to do, and exactly, basically did exactly how I planned. Like, as I said in the intro, if it's set up properly, Oricorio can literally entire team. And if he tries to set up in front of me, that just makes it even better. So, anyway, thank you so much for watching. Tune in next week where we take on the 5-time champ, the Boston Graybeard. Stay tuned for that. Thanks.